All right, it is 6 p.m. We do have quorum. I'm going to go ahead and call this evening's meeting of the City of Florence Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. First item on this evening's agenda is approval of the minutes from the January 26, 2023 meeting. Minutes have been submitted to members of the board at ample time to review. Are there any amendments or additions to the minutes as they are written? They're being done. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Next item on this evening's agenda is an executive session meeting of members of the board. Members of the board, if you will please follow city staff into the adjacent room as we go into executive session.
Chairman, you will need to, someone to executive session.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I make a motion to go into executive session.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. The board will now go into executive session. All right. The board has come out of executive session. The board did receive advice from legal counsel. No action was taken. The board will now continue on with this evening's agenda. Next item on this evening's agenda is hearing number BZA-2023-03, request for a variance from the lot width requirements for residential lots in Table 1-2.2.1b. Location is 1311 Virginia Acres, tax map number 90067-01-002. Owner of record is Elizabeth W. Reed. Applicant is Mr. Louis Hopkins. The zoning district is NC 15. The board will now hear from city staff.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So this is 1311 Virginia Acres and Virginia Acres subdivision. This is off of Second Loop Road. So the future plans for this lot, it's currently a single family home. The owner would like to go to the Historical Commission to get permission to demo the house. And then if the board grants the variance for the lot width, they would like to subdivide the parcel and then construct 2 single-family homes on the site. So here's kind of the zoning district is NC 15, and here's kind of the lot width variance that you get for, it ranges anywhere from 75-foot lot widths up to 300-foot lot widths, closer to Jeffries Creek on the north side. That's all the open space recreation area is Jeffries Creek. So in the NC 15 zoning district, if the board were to grant the variance, the new construction would still have to meet the setback standards, 25 feet in the front, 10 feet on the sides, and 30 feet in the rear. So the table in the Unified Development Ordinance for NC 15 designates minimum lot width for new lots as 100 feet and 15,000 square feet. Existing lots at the time that the Unified Development Ordinance was passed in 2018, anything in this neighborhood conservation subdistrict was considered conforming. So even if it's smaller than this table, it was conforming by way of basically being grandfathered in at the time of enactment. So this is an original layout that we found of Virginia Acres. This is dug out of the engineering department files. Unfortunately, it is not recorded, but it does show what we believe the original intent for the neighborhood was. And 1311 Virginia Acres, we believe, represents this lot 10 and 11, which is now a combined parcel. So it is a double lot existing, whereas the original layout was for 2 lots. So if this were a lot of record, which would have been at the time of conception, it was recorded, city staff would have been able to approve this through the Unified Development Ordinance as a lot of record. But this being really the only layout we can find, and the applicant checking with the clerk of court, we could not find anything definitive to show that it was recorded. So that's why the variance is required for the lot widths. Now here is the current home. that is proposed to be demolished at 1311 Virginia Acres. And this does show what the applicant is proposing. The subdivision would result, right now the parcel is approximately 160 feet in width, and they would like to divide it into two equal parts, being 80-foot lot width. So each parcel would require a 20-foot variance from what the unified development minimums are. So that is what the applicant is requesting today. And that does conclude staff's report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for city staff from members of the board?
Yes, Derek, has there been many calls regarding public or anything?
No,
The zoning signs out?
We sent letters, put signs out. We haven't, no phone calls, no emails.
None whatsoever?
Zero.
Not even curious?
Not even curious.
Gotcha. All right.
It's
Thank you.
shocking that the people of Florence don't take an interest in the Board of Zoning Appeals. Are there any other questions for city staff or members of the board?
Would there be any safety regulations or anything that could cause any kind of difficulties?
They'll be required to meet the setbacks. They'll have to go through zoning review and also through building code review. So the new home construction, the new construction would actually be meeting newer codes than the existing building. So yes, sir, it would go through zoning, it would go through building, all the necessary steps to meet compliance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valerie. Are there any other questions for city staff or members of the board?
Yes, I got one
Mr.
question. What is that plat? Was there a date on there? How far back do the historical records go?
I don't think we could. It kind of got cut off. I think these were in our flat files.
You
out
see
of
the
Public
engineering
Works.
department at the very end.
Right,
It doesn't
so
tell you who the surveyor was.
I know. I think it was cut off when we were scanning them all in to make sure they were saved for times such as this.
Historical, what is the age for historical? Is that a certain set?
We just have flat files that we've accumulated over the years. So blueprints, real blueprints, we still have in a secure location. But we've also tried to scan these in to be able to find them quickly. So this was one of those. We just scanned it in and have it in our computer system.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And just to clarify, if this were a proper plat, then this would have been handled administratively.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. All right, are there any other questions for city staff from members of the board? All right, thank you very much. The board will now hear from the applicant. Is Mr. Hopkins available? Mr. Hopkins, if you don't mind, sir, stating your name clearly into the microphone, and I'm going to swear you in.
Sure, my name's Louis Hopkins.
All right, Mr. Hopkins, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. You may proceed.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name's Louis Hopkins. I'm a home builder here in Florence. I was approached by this owner probably a few months back to purchase this lot and subdivide it. The house that's there now was built late 50s, early 60s. It's a concrete block house. It's in pretty bad shape. I've never been in the house, but the owner was basically told me that the house needs to be torn out. And so we built a new home beside it probably 6 or 8 years ago. And it's improved the street, and I think if we subdivide it, we'll still have 2 nice sized lots and 2 new houses, 2 single family houses, and it'll be more of an improvement for the street and for the area. And so that's what we're seeking today, see if we can get 2 lots out of this one larger lot.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant from members of the board?
I have one question. I see some well-established trees. Will you be demolishing those trees? I see those
If they're not
trees.
in the building area, we will leave them. Yes, ma'am.
What about driveway? Would there be enough for driveway for both of these homes, or will they have to
We,
split a
these
driveway?
lots are about 12,000 square feet, so they're really nice sized lots. They're not small lots. They're 80 by about 150. And we'll have plenty of room for driveways. I think the minimum, and Derek can speak with this, I think the minimum lot in the city now is about 6,000 square feet. And so these are, 30% larger than the minimum. So we'll have plenty of room for nice driveway, nice backyard. Setbacks on the front and sides will be ample.
And just to clarify, if the variance were granted and you were able to construct two homes, the home plans, even though they may not be on paper yet, conceptually will fit into existing zoning requirements for the two single lots?
They
Yes, sir.
will, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, we built the house, I would say, to the south of this,
Okay.
probably. I'm not sure what happened. I purchased that lot, and it was cleared at the time, so I'm not sure if a house burnt or what.
Okay.
But actually, one of the neighboring houses is a house, and these two would be similar to that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the
Yes, sir.
applicant. Will the lots be they'll be less than 15,000 square feet?
I think my quick math is they're around 12,000.
Okay, so that if a variance were to be granted, it
Right.
would also have to be for lot square footage minimum, which
Right.
would be the minimum is 15,000 square feet, and the applicant is saying the lots are going to be 12,000.
Okay.
So,
Like Derek mentioned before, there are smaller lots from the existing subdivision on this street now than these will be. And these new nice homes will be obtainable and affordable, and it'll be good for the neighborhood.
Okay.
When we went through the new Unified Development Code process and applying the zoning standards, what occurred was through GIS, we would look at these subdivisions as a whole,
Right.
and then average those out and then apply that zoning. So
Okay.
it's not uncommon for neighborhoods that have varying lot widths and sizes to not conform to what the existing code is.
Right.
The only thing that we could do is apply an average zoning code to,
Sure,
to that
sure.
area.
Okay. But to both of your points, if we were to grant the variance, we have to change the specific wording to include the new square footage approximation?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. I got you. All right. Are there any other questions for the applicant from members of the board?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard either for or against this variance request? All right, there being none, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request for this case.
I'll make a motion that we approve or deny for this case.
Okay, Mr. Valerie, I know this is your first hearing, and I appreciate you wanting to be a part. There's a process we go
I'm
through.
sorry.
No. I'm not discrediting you. I want to set up guardrails.
I got you. I'm sorry.
No.
I got excited.
Yeah, that's okay. We love excitement here at the Board of Zoning Appeals. What you want to do, if you want to withdraw your motion and let somebody else do it, or if you want to continue on, we can go that route.
I will withdraw my motion. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All right, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request for this case. And a reminder to the members of the board with regards to the specific square footage, we can put specific requirements on a variance request. So when you make your motion to either approve or deny, you can submit that with the stipulation that it complies with the square footage discussion that the city staff had with us. chair would like to make a motion that we grant this variance request based on the following findings of fact. That a variance from the terms of this ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest where, owing to special conditions of literal enforcement of the provisions, will in an individual case result in unnecessary hardship. This request concerns a double lot to be subdivided into its original intended form in keeping with the lot width sizes adjacent properties in the Virginia Acres subdivision, allowing for the construction of 2 single-family homes. Number 2, that the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. The neighborhood is characterized by lot widths and sizes from the original Virginia Acres subdivision. As staff pointed out, had the original plot map been certified, this would have been handled administratively. Lots on the street and in the neighborhood are both single and double lots, depending on the property owner's wishes. Although the new parcels will not meet the UDO Table 1-2.2.1b minimum for lot width, it will meet the intent of a single-family home on large lots. As the applicant stated, it will be roughly 1,200 square feet for these specific 2 lots. Number 3, there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. This is essentially a double lot in a neighborhood of mostly single lots. As we've seen in the attachments, the original intent was probably to have this as 2 single lots rather than 2 double lots, I apologize, rather than 1 single lot. Number 4, these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. The vast majority of lots along the Virginia Acres are single lots with lot widths ranging from approximately 75 to 115 feet, with a lesser number of double lots with widths ranging from approximately 140 to about 300 feet. And number 5, that because these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The owner wants to build 2 single-family houses on this particular parcel. If the variance request is not granted, he would only be able to build 1 single-family detached home. And then finally, number 6, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. The proposed lots will be in keeping with the character of the existing neighborhood and the original intent of the subdivision, as we have seen in both attachments of the current neighborhood and the previous drawing from archival records. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The variance request is approved. Mr. Hopkins, we appreciate you being here. You're welcome to stay, or you're welcome to leave. It's your best. All right, let me fast forward here. Next item on this evening's agenda is BZA hearing number 2023-04. This is a variance request from the sign requirements for a new commercial development located at South Church Street and Pamplico Highway. Location is South Church Street, Pamplico Highway, and Siesta Drive. Tax map numbers are 90109-01-003-004, and a portion of tax map number 90108-05-001. Owner of record is, I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, Jebby Properties LLC. Applicant is Southbound Florence.
All right, this one has a few moving parts to it.
Yes, it does.
It is, as you can see, it is located at the intersection of South Church, Pamplico, and East Siesta Drive. And the parcel that's 004 is already in the city, and then the other 3 parcels have been combined, and that's you've got the plat for that. They were just very recently combined and annexed into the city. And the applicants purchased, or the owners purchased, the front portion of the parcel that Compassion Church is on, that is on Pamplico Highway. And part of their agreement for that, and here it is a little up close, is that the sign identifying Compassion Church, which is about 750 feet off of Pamplico Highway, remain to identify as a wayfinding sign for the church. As you can see, everything around it is zoned either general commercial or in the county. And the parcels across the street, across Siesta Drive, are generally a residential use, but everything around it is commercial. and this is for a commercial development. Here's the new combined plat showing those 3 parcels, including the portion of Compassion Church portion, into Tract 2. And I'll refer to these as Tracts 1 and 2. 1 is the one where they're going to put a Dunkin' Donuts and the Slim Chickens. And then Tract 2, they're going to put just a small commercial development, like a strip mall kind of thing. I don't think it's been determined quite yet. But this is the church sign that will remain. And off-premise signs, if you were to do a new one, are only permitted to be 20 feet high and about 30 square feet. But because this is a pre-existing sign, and we calculated it to be about 120 square feet. And the general rule for freestanding signs is you get 1 freestanding sign per street frontage. So each of these parcels, as you can see, Tract 1 has frontage on Church and Pamplico, so it gets 2 freestanding signs. Tract 2 has frontage on Pamplico and Siesta, so it gets 2 freestanding signs. But where it got tricky was with the church sign, and those 2 signs can have a combined area of 160 square feet. So Tract 1 is fine, but Tract 2 would end up having 3 freestanding signs with the church sign. And because the church sign is 120, uses up 120 of those square feet, they would only be allowed to have 40 square feet in a second sign, and they want to have their own signs. So, yes. Everybody got that? So, and this is from the ordinance talking about the number of signs you're permitted to have and their area. And so, for something like this where you have 2 parcels under 1 ownership, they're supposed to have what's called a common signage plan, where there's a common theme. There's only 1, or in this case there could be up to 3 freestanding signs, but they're supposed to all have similar lighting, similar colors, and all that. But because they've got such different vendor or tenants coming in, they didn't want to do the common signage plan. So they are asking that requirement would be waived, so they can kind of treat these as 3 or 4 different individual commercial developments rather than one common one. So that's the first variance they're requesting. And so these are the freestanding signs for Dunkin' Donuts and the wall signs for Dunkin' Donuts. And those all meet the code for size and number, including the building signs. And because they're on a main street, each building would get up to 4 signs. So Dunkin' Donuts meets that. It's Slim Chickens that's a little bit tricky. Their freestanding sign, as long as it's not part of, because obviously it doesn't match the Dunkin' Donuts sign, but it meets the code for area and height. And those 2 combined would be on Tract 1, and they do meet for height and for area. So they're fine. It's just that they don't match. And then Slim Chickens has not actually given out exactly what signs they want, but I looked at some of their online, some of their existing stores, since we don't have one here. They do have quite a bit of signage, and so they did want to have the flexibility to have some of their corporate signage on there. So they're asking if they got everything that they indicate on this, there'd be up to 8 wall signs, which is quite a bit. So you could, limit them to 4 or 6 or whatever y'all feel is appropriate, or all 8. And then, so this kind of clarifies all of it. This shows the number of freestanding signs. The orange one is Dunkin' Donuts. The pink one is Slim Chickens. Those are on Tract 1, and those are okay. And then the blue one is the church sign that they've agreed to leave. And the green ones are 2 future commercial signs that they want to be able to put up as they get new tenants onto Parcel 2, Tract 2. So those 2 are the ones that really kind of need the variance on number and size.
Okay.
And so here's the off-premise signage requirement, the information about it being 30 square feet. So the church sign also needs the variance on its area. And then for the area, the total area, the 160 for the other 2 signs. So basically kind of pretending the church sign doesn't exist is what they want to do. So as if the church sign wasn't there, then they could have 2 freestanding signs with the 160 square feet. And then the total wall sign, these are the variety of signs that could be on the Slim Chickens. So, but as I said, they have not been specified yet, but they would like to have more than just the 4 that they would be permitted by the code.
Okay.
So, that concludes staff's report. Everybody got it?
Get comfortable. Just to clarify, Tract 1 has Dunkin' Donuts and Slim Chickens going in.
Yes.
And as it stands now, the street frontage signs are fine, as they proposed. The issue with Tract 1 is the actual wall signs requested by Slim Chickens.
Right,
Okay.
and the fact that they are not a common signage plan. They don't match.
They don't match. Okay. All right. So,
And I listed out all the 5 variances in your packet.
right, yeah. So one option for Tract 1 would be to enforce the common signage plan. That way Dunkin' and Slim Chickens could have one sign advertising both businesses.
Right.
And
they
then
don't
the
wanna
wall
do that.
signs, and they won't do that? Oh,
They don't want to do that.
oh, they don't want to do that? Oh,
Right,
okay.
right. That's what they need the variance from.
Okay, I got you. Okay. And so, okay, and then for Tract 2,
It's,
the issue is future signage.
right. They want to be able to have 2 signs with up to the 160 between them. Or
Along with the variance for the existing church sign because it was brought into the city.
that's
Okay,
correct.
okay.
Very good.
Record that. All right. Are there any other questions for city staff from members of the board?
I have one question. Is this the same area where they have, they've already opened, well, I don't think it's open, that smoothie?
No, this is down a little bit more. There was a new On The Go was just built.
Yeah,
This is just on the other side of Church Street from the On The Go,
okay.
across from the Domino's. It's where the Pelican Frozen
Yeah,
was,
okay.
and that building's getting torn down.
Dan, do you have a question?
Why would the church sign have a problem with this lot?
Well, I think the applicants they needed that part of the lot to develop their commercial development. Otherwise, they just had those skinny little parcels. They weren't big enough to do anything on.
What I'm saying is, why would it affect a new owner, a different owner, when that sign been there for years?
Because it becomes part of the new parcel, and so it's under the restriction for 2 signs, but it becomes a 3rd because they want to add 2 of their own.
If that was on the church property, it wouldn't be a problem.
That's correct.
It would be grandfathered in, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if it was on the church property, since the church is still in the county, we wouldn't care. We wouldn't be involved.
Thank you.
If this is going to be a strip mall, why do they need so much signage? I mean, it's going to be right there together.
That's just what I think they just
All
want
those
to
signs
have
are
the
gonna be
option.
down. I mean, okay.
Okay, because when I'm looking at, they're right there at that intersection where they're yielding to the right to go onto Church Street, am I right?
Yes.
And then in my head, I'm just thinking about how the traffic is over there. And all that signage, that's a distraction. I'm not, I'm just, am I right where the location is going to be at?
Yeah. You coming from USC, turning right.
Turning right there, okay. And which side of the street you said?
This will be on the north
What's the
side.
name? Slim Chicken. I apologize. Slim Chicken is going to be located which side? Is that the Pamplico Highway side?
On towards, if you look at the map,
It'll be across the street from On The Go.
It'll be across the street from On The Go.
on the north side of Pamplico.
Okay, right after the yield. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It'll be more so across the street from the gas station.
Y'all said they did not agree to a common signage.
That's correct. Because they are such distinct national brands, they wanted their individual signs. And the applicant is here if you wanted to ask that question.
Right, yeah. So the 5 variance requests in this and this is on page 20. Number 3 is just the church. And the other 4 relate to, well, the first 2 relate to, okay, there it is. I got it now. Okay. And in considering either approving or denying the variance requests, or is the board going to have to go item by item of the 5 different requests?
I think that's up to you. You
Okay.
could, say as submitted.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Is there a way, I know they want their multiple signs, but is there a way we can minimize some of the signage?
The only thing that denying the variance would do, they would still be permitted to have 2 freestanding signs on each parcel. So the Dunkin' Donuts and Slim Chickens could still each have their own sign. They just would have to, I'm not sure how you would do that with 2 distinct.
You couldn't.
Yeah, this is.
There are 5 individual variance requests
Right.
under this one report, so the board can choose to grant 1 or 2, or essentially choose to grant a select of the requests that have been made, or to grant all of them, or to deny all.
Okay. And I guess my question is, if we do that, we can either lump them all together or piecemeal them out, but the evidence would be just one time. That's right. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Are there any other questions for city staff or members of the board? Thank you very much, Elaine. All right, the board will now hear from the applicant. If you don't mind, sir, please step up to the microphone and state your name clearly, and then I'm going to swear you in.
Colin Denhard.
All right, Cobb. You said Denard?
Denhard.
Denhard, okay. If you don't mind, sir, you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth.
Yes, I did.
All right, you may proceed, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to be here, and allowing us to be here. Like I said, my name is Colin Denhard. I'm with Southbound Development Group. We are a retail development company out of Atlanta, Georgia. We specialize in single-tenant developments much like this throughout the Southeast. Mainly, most of our work is done in the Carolinas. And as we've heard, we are here seeking a number of variances for signage rights for this new development, bringing Slim Chickens, Dunkin' Donuts, and future tenant or tenants on this adjacent parcel. We are currently under contract to purchase these properties with a closing anticipating in early May, which will lead to a middle of May probably construction date, provided we get this signage stuff squared away. With that, as Elaine mentioned and explained so well, our initial agreement with the church to sell us a portion of their property was that the church sign that has been existing there today to remain. We had no problems with that. It doesn't conflict with our development. As we got through this process and planning, we realized that whatever goes on this future commercial parcel at the corner of ECS to Tampico, where Pelican Snowballs currently exists, we would be limited on the signage. And so it's necessary for any tenant opening their store that they're going to have signage rights along the main thoroughfare. So I know it's a complicated scenario and a number of variances, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have, and hopefully we can come to an agreement. And we're excited to be working with you guys in the city of Florence and bring new development, new jobs, and new tenants to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Denhard. Is there any reason why the common signage plan can't be used for both Dunkin' and Slim Chickens. I understand the national branding and everybody wants their own space. I get
Yeah.
that.
I don't think there's any issue as to that it can't be used. We
Right.
just haven't looked at they're very strict on wanting their own freestanding sign.
Sure.
Especially given how busy this intersection is.
Right.
They want visibility from South Church Street. Duncan being so close to South Church, they kind of won't be seen from Pamplico Highway, say people coming from MUSC
Right.
up Pamplico Highway, so that's why they are requesting their freestanding sign where it is, so that people can see, hey, Dunkin' Donuts is over here.
I got you.
But to fully answer your question, I think we just haven't looked into what that sign would look like.
Right.
If we can do 2 freestanding signs, and we can certainly make the colors of the pole and the bases match and uniform. That was probably a given and what we would do anyway. Once this common sign plan came up, we also realized that in the future, if these parcels are subdivided, who is responsible for maintenance and repairs to the sign if it's a 2-tenant sign?
Right.
So a future owner might buy the Dunkin' Donuts piece, but not the Slim Chickens.
I got you.
If there's a repair to the sign, who's responsible for that? So that's why we requested the 2 freestanding.
Okay.
Okay, and what about the future of the plaza that you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, that can be unified where it can be one sign and they all have their own. What do you
Correct.
foresee for
So
that?
we don't have official plans for what this future parcel will be. It could be a single tenant user, much like, let's say, Slim Chickens, for example. It could be a multi-tenant strip center. We've had conversations going both ways. We just are way further ahead in the Dunkin' Donuts and Slim Chickens. So in the event that it is a multi-tenant parcel, we absolutely will do, one sign with multiple panels. That's without a doubt. In the event it's a single tenant user, let's say Zaxby's or whatever, Zaxby's is gonna, they would have their own just freestanding sign. And again, it would be uniform with, the bases or whatever, the entire development. I hope that answers.
With regards to the wall signs, it looks like Duncan's request is fine. It's Slim Chickens. Is there a reason
That is their standard prototype.
just to cover everything?
Yeah, they
Okay.
try to get as much signage as they can. And in preparation for this meeting,
Right.
I have had a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And I know that I think Elaine pointed out they're asking for 8 signs. I understand that's a lot.
Right.
They understand that too. So we're more than happy to peel that back a little bit.
Okay.
Whatever is, maximal allowable by code.
Right.
We're fine with that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Lane, it's 4?
Because it's in view of a major thoroughfare, which is Pamplico Highway,
Right.
they can have up to 1 per wall.
Okay.
And the front and rear signs could be up to 200 square feet, and the side walls could be up to 100 square feet.
Okay. So visible from the street would actually be would just be 2 then?
That's correct.
Okay, so from 8 to 2. Okay.
And
Okay.
just so you know, they have already given me the liberty to, if we need to cut back signs, they prefer to cut back the signs that are on the drive-through.
Okay.
Which would be, if you're looking at the building from Pamplico Highway, would be on the facing South Church Street. So it would be facing Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
They have given me the liberty to, if we need to cut back signs, to remove signage up around the drive-through.
And by my count, that would be, this is on page 33. That would be items FGH.
Correct.
That should be 3. Okay. Okay.
Question, on that lot by Pelican, the snowball field, y'all don't have a tenant for that yet, right?
We are currently in discussions with a tenant. It hasn't been, we don't have a lease signed or corporate approval for that tenant. But we have had multiple discussions with.
Well, then why not bring it back to the board rather than try to mix it in with it?
I think the reason is just to do it all in one swoop, to get, a overall plan of what we are allowed to do, given this church sign, because this tenant will need to, if we were to strike an agreement with them, they have to get corporate approval, and them understanding what their signage rights are is a big deal, and it's crucial for them. So that's why we're here, to go ahead and get the approval for it.
You did mention that y'all are in the process of purchasing the property, correct?
Correct. We've been under contract and for probably a year now, working on this, and planning to close beginning of May.
Is the closing contingent upon this approval?
I wouldn't say contingent. The church sign remaining is critical in this, given that it's existing. We are buying a significant portion of this eastern parcel development, which is known as Track 2, is the most significant piece in this, given the driveway, the stormwater pond, and if this church sign, we can't get what we need on that. There will be some hiccups, but I don't think it's, critical or hingent upon.
Basically, what our decision is today won't affect the contract. Y'all being under contract.
It could, because these are corporate tenants, and if I go to them, we've had the lease signed with Dunkin' Donuts for probably 8 months now, and same with some chickens, and say, oh well, now we can't get signage. They have an out in their lease, and then we would likely back out of it.
Okay, and they said they'll be likely, y'all had a discussion already prior to coming here.
Correct.
And they wouldn't mind scaling back some.
Correct.
What does that look like? Did
Absolutely.
they give you a number of how many signs they'll be willing to cut back on?
They didn't give me a number, but they did say that they would be willing to scale down to whatever's maximum allowable by code. So that's a significant decrease from what they're showing now.
Who actually owns the church sign itself?
The church.
Okay, who owns the property it sits on?
The church.
Okay, the church owns that property as well, and that's the property that's in negotiations to be purchased.
Correct.
Okay, with it being purchased, the sign remains.
Correct.
Who upkeeps it? Who takes care of it?
We would do an easement with the church, since it's an off-premise sign with the church, that the church would be responsible to maintain their sign like they would do today, now that they own the property.
But y'all would own the property physically?
We would own the property, and then they would have the rights to come on and repair it and maintain it as needed.
Okay. Has the church voiced any worry that their sign will not even be able to be seen?
No, they have been in full support of us up until this point, and they've been extremely gracious in working with us and trying to, help us get this resolved. But they have not had any opposition to this point.
So their responsibility just for the sign itself, but the landscape and everything surrounding the sign, y'all
Yes,
be
ma'am.
responsible.
Yes, ma'am.
If that sign is not allowed, if the church sign is not allowed, would that hinder the process of purchasing it from the church in regards to the contract?
Yes, because
That would.
they are
So
under
that's
the
contingent
impression
on
that the sign is to stay. It's in our contract that the church sign is to remain.
So that one is contingent upon the sale. So if we deny that one, that marks out that one. So that one is contingent.
Correct.
Okay.
And that the church property, as it stands now, is where most of the roadway would go, servicing ECS all the way over to Dunkin' Donuts and South Church Street, where the stormwater pond is currently seen. Most of that property is the church-owned property.
Are there any questions for the applicant from members of the board? No? All right, Mr. DeHarter, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Yes, sir. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard either for or against the variance request? All right, there being none, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance requests.
Mr. Chairman, are we gonna break it up one by one, bunch them up? What's the best way?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's up to us. We can you can make a motion to remove one of the variance requests or deny their request. And we are free to make whatever stipulations we want to make.
That's referring to page 20 of the variance request.
Yes, yes, sir.
5 of them.
Yes, sir. All right, before we want to make a decision on approving or denying a variance request, the chair would like to make a motion that we remove variance request number 2, which is a request a sign variance to permit one extra freestanding sign in the eastern parcel to accommodate the church sign until such place as a tenant is in place, in which the tenant would then have the capability to come back to the board to show us their plans about signage on the eastern parcel. Just to clarify, this is the parcel that is currently vacant. This is not the Dunkin' Donuts Slim Chickens parcel.
It's where the church sign is located on?
Yes. So this is simply, to your position, we don't have a tenant there, so we don't know the number of signs requested. It's just proposed. So rather than try to lump that into this, the chair would like to make a motion that we remove the second variance request.
I second that motion.
Now, does the chair have to give the complete and total breakdown, or can we simply just remove that request because it is not?
I would recommend that the motion be made for the variance request of items 1, 3, 4, and 5, and then.
Very well. I agree. Okay. Now, the chair withdraws his original motion. I still want to piecemeal this out.
I think we could probably do it. I feel like unify it together, like do it together, but they have it on signage.
Yeah.
But with the exception of Slim Chicken, Slim Chicken, cut back on signage.
Right. Because to me, 2 and 4, until we have a tenant in place for the eastern parcel, that's the parcel with the existing church sign. Right. Until we have a tenant in place and a plan in place, I hate to give a blanket approval for something that we don't know what it's going to look like. Right. Am I in disagreement with that on the board?
No, I agree with that because you think about color schemes.
Right, right.
Traffic, all of that.
That was.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you taking out number 2 and 3? 2 and 4?
I'm trying to figure out a way to word this to make it as easy as possible so that we don't run out here till 7:45.
Can I ask the city
Yeah, go ahead.
And you said for the Slim Chicken, a minimum of 2 signs would still allow them to have visibility from each street. Am I right?
They could have up to 4 separate wall signs, one for each wall, or they can have 2 signs if they wanted to have more than 1 sign on one wall.
So it's either or.
Yes, ma'am.
Either the 4 wall signs or the 2 street signs. Is that right?
Yes.
Not 2 wall signs on one side and a street sign.
Well, they can have this. The freestanding sign is fine. They can have that. We're just talking building signage. So, like, if they wanted to, like on that one page has the 8 different signs that they would pick. Or if you look at the picture of the building that they suggested, like they've got something on all 4 sides, and some of the sides have 2 or 3 signs. So the ordinance itself permits them to have 1 sign per wall. But if they cannot put all 4 signs on one wall, if that helps.
I think it'll make sense when you do one side and then because you're back wall, you're not gonna be able to see the sign anyway. It's in the church.
That's talking about the sign. Are we? They're gonna have a drive-through. So they have the drive-through sign. Are we counting that also?
Well, if you look at the page with the elevations of the buildings,
That's 34, right?
I'm not sure what page it's
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
This one, yes. And you see, they're marking them as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So the picture on the bottom in the middle is the front, and I think that's the drive-through side. So they're asking, they've got 3 signs on the drive-through side and 1 on the front. And then the upper right corner, the E sign would be on the very back of the building, and F, G, and H would be on the east side of the building.
I think we label what signs we approve within this motion.
Could they have a sign on top of the building? Because technically that is a wall. No, it's not really a wall, but
What do you mean on top of the building?
On the roof.
Like
on the roof. There you go. That's a better word.
No, these have to be on the walls.
It has to be on the wall. Okay.
Because see, when we look at the model of the building, and I guess that's probably what it's saying with the, I'm not no architect or nothing like that, but if you see how some of the wall is out, some of the wall is in, I guess you would say all that still is congruent where it's considered to be one wall. Because
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
talking about dimensions, right?
Yes. So like the one on the middle picture on the bottom, they're showing 3, and actually the 1 isn't even marked. There's next to C,
It's like
there's 3
3,
more
4G.
signs there.
Right.
Yeah. They've got a lot of signage going on there.
They do have a lot of signs.
Because when I counted it all, that's like a
I mean,
million.
we're talking about wall signs, 1 on each.
Oh, that's 12. That's not 8.
Are there any other questions for city staff, for members of the board? Okay. No, don't apologize. No, this is complicated. Let's talk it out.
I could say we could remove G.
All right, the chair would like to revise his earlier motion, and I'm going to piece this out, but bear with me. The chair would like a motion that we grant variance requests number 3 and 5 listed on page 20 of the application. Number 3 is a request an area variance to allow the 120 square foot church sign as a legal off-premises sign. And number 5 is a variance request in the number and area of wall signs to accommodate Sun Chicken's standard corporate wall signage if desired. We will grant these requests based on the following findings of fact: that a variance from the terms of this ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest, where owing to special conditions and little enforcement of the provisions will an individual case result in unnecessary hardship. The sign ordinance has been applied to multiple properties throughout the municipality that are similar in dimensions and zoning, and the applicant has agreed to meet us halfway by removing signs F, G, and H listed on page 33, which is the drive-through that faces Dunkin' Donuts. Number two, that the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. The spirit of the sign ordinance is to regulate and permit the number of signs to create an orderly development of signage within the city of Florence. The church property was recently brought into the city of Florence. The sign was in compliance before, and we're simply trying to bring it into compliance now by granting this variance request. Number three, that there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Prior to obtaining a variance, the Compassion Church and the applicant agreed to allow the continued use of the sign along the frontage road. Number four, that these conditions do not generally apply to other properties. This property is similar in its characteristics as other properties within the city limits that are located on the corner of major thoroughfares, although the church property is set farther back and therefore does not have access to the frontage road. Number five, that because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or easily restrict the utilization of the property. As it's currently regulated, no restriction on the size or number of signs are placed upon the property, but we're bringing this property into the city and making it in compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance. And finally, number six, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Properties within the city are located within the city limits and currently meet the standards of the ordinance. We're simply bringing this property into the Unified Development Ordinance, and in agreement with the applicant's removal of the three signs on page 33 and the, grandfathered in applications for the existing church sign would be the best way to word that part. Do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Variance requests 3 and 5 are approved. This leaves variance requests numbers 1, 2, and 4 still to be decided upon. Yes, the board can put whatever stipulations we want to on either approval or denial of a variance request.
What would the common signage look like? What would the common signage, if we grant to eliminate the requirement for a common signage plan? What would that look like? Like they can have their own particular, they don't have to
It
be
would look like they've applied, like the application does, the two singles.
uniform. Just like that. Okay.
the chair would like to make a motion that we deny variance requests number 2 and 4, listed on page 20. Variance request number 2 is a request a sign number variance to permit one extra freestanding sign on the eastern parcel. And number 4 is a request a total area variance to allow 2 other freestanding signs on the eastern parcel of the request. Based on the following findings of fact, that a variance in the terms of this ordinance will be contrary to the public interest where owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions will in an individual case result in unnecessary hardship. There are no existing tenants in place. The board does not have a plan in front of us, nor does the city, as to what these signs would be comprised of, how big or how many they would need, other than 2 additional signs. The board would like to ask the tenant that whenever the board would like to ask the applicant that when they do get a tenant in place, we'll be more than happy to discuss this further. That the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, substantial justice done. Again, the board does not have an existing plan for what future tenants may require or request of the city. That there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Although the property itself is okay, a request of simple signage is not enough. We would need to see a specific plan in place to make sure it comes in compliance. Number 4, these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. In the past, board requests for approval or denial have been based on existing plans submitted to city staff. Number 5, that because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the property, the particular piece of property, would effectively prohibit or in a reasonably restrict utilization of the property. Again, we still need a plan in place before we can act. And finally, number 6, that the authorization of a variance will be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will be harmed by the granting of this variance. Properties in this vicinity are located within the city limits and currently meet standards of the ordinance, and until the board has a plan in place as to what these signs will be and what the tenant's going to require, I do not feel we can act in good faith. And again, this is a motion to deny the variance request for items number 2 and 4. All right, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The variance request for items 2 and 4 is denied. And if you're keeping track, we have one left, and that's variance request item number 1. I apologize. And just to clarify, the common sign plan does allow for 2 signs for each street. And since the western parcel with which this is concerned does have 2 streets, Church Street and Pamplico Highway, is that not allow administratively a relief from the common signage plan?
It still falls under that requirement.
Okay.
I think generally when you have something like that where it is, but that does fall more for like a small strip mall or something where you would have tenants or
Multiple
ownership
tenants.
in multiple tenants in one
Right.
building.
Okay.
And in a case like this, there might be a monument sign at each entrance,
Okay.
for example.
Okay.
So this one is a little more unique since you do have two distinct tenants.
And,
Right.
and that would still cut that slim chicken even more, though, wouldn't it?
No, I think the only way it would look different would be they could still have two freestanding signs. They just would. I'm not sure. Would we require them both be on one pole, on the same pole? I haven't seen this situation before, so I'm not sure what we'd require of it.
It's certainly unique. Typically, in this situation, we would have two separate parcels where each individual property would have its own street frontage. Being Dunkin' Donuts would be located on its own property, and so would Slim Chicken. So
Right.
it's certainly a unique situation where when you've got a single lot that has multiple frontages, that is under one ownership. It is the intent of the sign ordinance is that those are typically strip malls or single buildings with multiple tenants within them. And that's why it would not permit. If you've got a strip mall with 3 units, you would not permit 3 individual
I got you.
signs. You would only allow the single with the common signage.
I just guess my question is, I understand the intent of the common signage plan is you have one location with multiple signs
That's right.
for a plot, but in this particular case, you have 2 tenants on a single parcel, but they share 2 streets.
That's right.
They're allowed 2 signages, 1 sign per street. I just didn't know, because of looking at the drawings, it looks like they were in compliance with that. I just know how to.
It's the being under one single property.
Okay, I see what you're
Because
saying.
it's
Okay, I got you.
You know?
You know, just got to word it right. Just got to get worded right. Yeah. Jim.
Yes.
So I'm looking at with the approval, but we're leaning the city chicken signage for the front, where they have that same wall, where they're sharing the same piece, but allowing there 2 for the back, because she said it's 2 per side.
Yeah, it's 2 separate buildings.
2 separate.
Right. And the applicants already said they would remove 3 of their signs. So they've already agreed to that. That's part of this one. This house has to do with the common signage plan, which is the signs on the frontage road, on the front of the road, right there on Tampa Highway and Church.
Yeah, I can see the approval.
Off the top of your head, are there any other corner lots shared by 2 tenants that have advertising rights, dreams, aspirations, that would need 2 signs that don't share a common signage?
I'm just thinking at 5 points. Do Orange Theory Fitness and Starbucks have separate signs?
They have wall signs. I haven't seen
Yes,
a.
they have their individual freestanding signs.
Right.
All of those are located on their own.
On their own parcel.
Yes.
But it's, just off the top of your head, there's anybody that shares a single parcel, 2 tenants on a corner lot?
I can think of one on the corner of West Palmetto and Second Loop. There's a Brakes for Less and Wyndham Motors. They're all under one parcel.
They got 2 separate sides?
Separate signs.
They're two separate freestanding signs.
Wyndham Motors and the Brakes for Less, that's one parcel?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay. Wow. It's a big parcel.
That they do share 2 separate street frontage,
Right.
just
One
like,
west Palmetto, one
just
Second
like
Lane.
the one
Yeah.
on Church. The applicant was Tracy.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. Please step up to the microphone. Yes, sir. Yep.
Just going to reiterate that the reason we're requesting to remove the common sign plan is because the likelihood that this parcel will be eventually subdivided.
Right.
So Dunkin' Donuts will, to make it easy, right now it's a 2-acre parcel. Say, once they're built, it's extremely likely that they're going to be subdivided into 2 1-acre parcels, and that's why we're asked to remove the common sign plan. So each parcel in the future will have its own freestanding sign
I
to
got you.
eliminate the confusion of, oh, we need to repair this or do this. Who is responsible for that? Where when it's subdivided, it's clear who is responsible.
No addition of tenants, just dividing the parcel. Okay.
Correct.
But once y'all divide the parcel, y'all be allowed to have a freestanding sign with each street.
Correct.
So if you already had it subdivided, we wouldn't even have this process of discussing it.
Correct. It's just easier for building plans and civil plans and LDP and all that stuff to do it since it's one parcel right now.
Okay.
To do it all together.
All right.
Is that plans, that is y'all's plans to subdivide that
Eventually.
eventually? That is in the plans?
Yes, sir.
Y'all can bring that back to the board as well, possibly, once y'all do that, if this is not granted.
Possibly, but it'll be at later down the road once the tenants are open. And that there's Dunkin' Donuts and Slim Chickens, they will not allow, not having a sign.
It's really not Dunkin' Donuts, where I think we're more so about the Slim Chickens not picking exactly what their signage will be as opposed to Dunkin' Donuts kind of, they have theirs locked in.
Correct. Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts is in, as a link to the building signage is in compliance. And we've already agreed to reduce the Slim Chickens building signage. It's
Right.
just the freestanding
It's just the
signs up
freestanding.
on the road, which that's what we're clarifying right now on the common sign plan.
But how many signs they want at the road? They
Just
each
one.
want-
Just
Just one. Oh.
It's on the exhibit in there where it's that they just both tenants just want one sign.
If the board were to grant the variance for the common signage plan and the applicant at a later date subdivides the property, there would not be a requirement for any additional variances. So, in fact, if the board were to not grant the variance and the applicant goes into common signage plan and then later subdivides, they would actually be an existing nonconformity.
Right.
They would not conform to because at that point, Dunkin' Donuts and Slim Chickens both would have off-premise signs.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. The chair would like to make a motion that we grant variance request number 1 listed on page 20. That is to eliminate the requirements for a common signage plan to allow district freestanding signs and wall signage based on the following findings of fact. That a variance from the terms of the ordinance will not be contrary to public interest, where owing to the special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provision will in individual case result in unnecessary hardship. The sign ordinance has been applied to multiple properties throughout the municipality, and this is a very unique condition. And the applicant has already stated that there are intentions to divide the parcel further, which would essentially eliminate the need for this variance request for future. But the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, substantial justice done. The spirit of the sign ordinance is to regulate and permit the number of size and number of signs to create an orderly development of signage. These are 2 individual companies that are going to share a parcel that also share 2 streets, and it is the opinion that that is in keeping in good faith of the ordinance here, that each sign will have its own street frontage separate from the other. Number 3, that extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, as we stated in the city of Florence, prior to obtaining the variance, as we stated that there aren't too many other pieces of property in which you have 2 individual tenants sharing one particular piece of property that have 2 street frontages. Number 4, that these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Again, this is a very unique situation. The property is similar in characteristics to other properties within the city limits. However, these are 2 tenants that are sharing one parcel with facing 2 streets. That because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property. It won't restrict utilization of the property, but it will require another visit back to the Board of Zoning Appeals if the property is divided further. And being that the tenant has acted in good faith in agreeing to remove signs F, G, and H on page 33 with regards to wall signage, we feel this will be keeping in good faith with the ordinance. And finally, number 6, that the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of this variance. Again, these are 2 individual tenants that happen to share one parcel, but each tenant has its own street frontage. So the properties in the vicinity that are located within the city limits, this will still, in the chair's opinion, keep in the standards of the ordinance. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion to grant variance request number 1, found on page 20, is approved. There being no other items on this evening's agenda, are there any updates from city staff? The chair would like to extend a warm welcome. Mr. Valerie here, you picked one heck of a meeting. Glad to have you on board, my friend.
Thank you. Glad to learn something today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.